Notes up.
Hello and welcome to Who's the Bossk? It's a Star Wars podcast from laughingplace.com. My name is Mike Celestino. I am your host. I am the lead Southern California reporter and editorial director for Star Wars content at Laughing Place. This is episode number 166 of Who's the Bossk, and we will be discussing the third episode of the new live-action Disney Plus series, Star Wars Ahsoka from Lucasfilm. And for that discussion, I have invited back on the show my friend and fellow Star Wars superfan and podcaster, Sarah Woloski. Sarah, thank you for coming back on the show to talk about some more Star Wars.
Thanks for inviting me. And there's no better way to come on than talk about Ahsoka, one of my favorite characters ever. And this new season, this new series coming out, I think we've been waiting for as Star Wars fans since Star Wars Rebels ended, like
Yes.
what, 6 years ago or something?
Right.
So yeah, this is amazing. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. I knew you would want to talk about this show. Glad to have you. And yeah, we had that cliffhanger at the end of Rebels that hasn't paid off until now. So yeah, it's a long time coming, that's for sure. But before we get into talking about that show, Ahsoka, I want to ask you how you've been doing. How are things at your Star Wars podcast and website, Skywalking Through Neverland? What has been going on over there?
Well, it's been exciting times here. We had our first panel at San Diego Comic-Con ever.
Yes.
So, and you covered that. We hosted the Star Wars trivia panel that capped off a complete Star Wars day at San Diego Comic-Con, which was super exciting. And now things are just revving up here on the network because of the Ahsoka show, because of lots of invites to some press events and things that are coming up, some movies. So we're really excited here. And we actually have some more conventions coming up because Richard is a book author. I'm a book illustrator / putting the book together. So yes, we have our books today in Star Wars history and Skywalking Through My Fandom and interactive notebook. So we will be at Long Beach Comic-Con this weekend, September 2nd and 3rd. We'll have our own booth in Artist Alley. So if anyone out there, any Laughing Place listeners want to stop by, we're in Artist Alley B29. And we're super excited to say hello to anyone. We ordered more buttons that are really cute. You know, I don't have any on hand, but they have Grogu on them. They have little baby Yoda. And then we're also hosting 2 panels at that convention.
Wow.
Another Star Wars trivia session, which they're always different. So you can come to every Star Wars trivia panel that we do. They're always going to be different. That's going to be on Saturday. And then on Sunday, for the very first time, one of our offshoot spin-off shows we do is go through the classic Marvel Star Wars comics.
Okay.
Have you seen those episodes or listened?
I have listened to 1 or 2 of them, on the regular show, yeah.
And it's really fun because it's like the classic Marvel series from like before I was born, before we were born, like 1978 through, or yeah. Anyway, and so we're going to go over one of those issues as a panel, and I display the issue on screen and everyone can kind of comment on it. It's just a real trip, right?
Yeah.
Bring up something from 1980.
That sounds like a lot of fun. I haven't been to Long Beach Comic-Con. Have you done that convention before just as attendees or yes?
Yes, we have as last year We did it as attendees. It was a little small because people were just kind of getting out of the pandemic mode,
Right.
but I think now things are more back to normal. So I think it'll be pretty big. But it's also one of those nice conventions where it's not too gigantic that you have to wait hours in line for panels
Right.
and things like that. You can pretty much just walk around at your own pace, walk into a panel, anything you want, things like that. So we're excited about that.
Yeah, I like that convention center. I go there for Midsummer Scream. I saw you guys at
Yes.
Midsummer Scream every year, and it is nice and intimate. So I know what you're talking about there. And yeah, I absolutely got a kick out of seeing your trivia panel at San Diego Comic Con. I still feel guilty about calling it chaotic on this show. I want to, extend an apology and clarify that it was the crowd that was chaotic. You guys put a lot of effort into organizing that, and you can definitely tell how much work you put into putting that together. I just feel like it is tough to corral that many people and keep all those folks like organized when you're doing
Oh,
something.
yes.
Um,
Yeah, definitely. Well, we appreciate that, Mike. We're glad you could be part of it,
yeah,
actually. So, yeah.
very happy to be there too, and it was a very fun way to end that day, which was all Star Wars the whole day in that same room. But yeah, absolutely a tremendous amount of fun. So if you are listening to this or watching this live, we are, by the way, recording live on the Laughing Place YouTube channel, and you live in the Southern California area, be sure to go to the Long Beach Comic Con this
Comic-Con.
weekend for you have two things, two panels, and then you have the booth. So
Yep.
go and check that out, pick up the books, check out the panels. Okay, Sarah, you have been on the show a number of times before, but you have not been on in season 4 this year. So you have not answered the 5 Star Wars questions level 4. Are you ready for this?
I am, but I wanna know how you keep track of all this. Do you have, like, lists and Venn
I do.
diagrams and
Speaking of chaotic, that's genuinely chaotic because every time I have to figure out, okay, how many times has this guest been on the show? Then I have to hunt. You'd think I would keep the lists,
you
the
need a
questions
spreadsheet.
in a spreadsheet, but I have not done that work. So uh, it is disorganized. I would say is a kind word for it, but I do know what the 5 Star Wars questions level 4 are. So here we go. Number 1, what is your personal favorite Star Wars weapon? And as an addendum to this question, if you are selecting a lightsaber or a blaster, please be specific as to its model or owner, because there are a lot of versions of those types of weapons in the Star Wars galaxy. All right, what do you think, Sarah?
This is, like, the hardest of all your Star Wars questions for
Really?
me
Okay.
because I like, don't attach myself to things like that. I more attach myself
Sure.
to characters or
Okay.
things. So, I'm gonna be very Jedi-like in this answer, in that a Jedi's best offense is his defense. So, I love when Obi-Wan Kenobi is sneaking around on the Death Star, and instead of taking down stormtroopers, he just distracts him with a little point and,
Oh,
like, a noise.
right.
So I'm gonna say the distraction
Oh, okay.
weapon.
So no one has actually chosen like a force power
Yeah,
as a weapon before. That's a great choice. I hadn't even considered. I was thinking like physical weapons, but I think this totally counts because
yeah,
we play a Star Wars video game. Often you'll have like a variety of force powers that you can choose from, and yeah, I think that totally counts. That's a great choice, and like you said, a more peaceful type of a
yes.
weapon. So yeah, I love it. That's a wonderful outside the box choice for that question. Number
Thank you.
2, which Star Wars actor has had? So the rest of these, by the way, are not. They're kind of speaking of outside the box. They're a little further outside the box of Star Wars. But which Star Wars actor has had your favorite career outside of Star Wars?
Okay. I could go with the easy answer, which is Harrison Ford, which,
Yeah,
like, immediately came to mind because, I mean, he's my guy and I
yeah.
loved everything he's in mostly. However, my real answer and the thing that you'd have to put on your spreadsheet is Ming-Na Wen.
Oh, okay.
Because she's got, like, the trifecta. She has been in Star Wars, and she loves Star Wars. I've gotten to talk with her
Yeah.
at a press conference. I think were you on that one? I don't
I
know,
don't
but
think
I've
so.
gotten to talk with her and she was amazing. I asked her about foxes and she gave this whole thing. And then she's also the voice of Mulan. So she
Yes.
is a genuine bona fide Disney princess and
Right.
she owns it. And then she's also been in Marvel as Agent May in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and she was a badass. Like I loved her in that show. So just taking those into account,
Yeah.
not even other things she's done, I think it's cool that she has the trifecta of Star Wars, Disney, Marvel.
She does seem really, really cool from what I've seen of interviews with her, and I don't think I got to be in that,
Oh,
press junket that you did. I think it was probably for Book of Boba Fett, right? But,
yes.
from the stuff I've heard, like
No, it was Bad Batch.
oh, for Bat okay,
Fennec
because Fennec
Shand.
Shan showed up there too,
Yeah.
yeah. She seems like one of these actors who I think she was written in for one episode of Mandalorian and was killed off, and then she was so enthusiastic about coming back that they decided to bring her back. Like, how cool is that? That she was so excited to be in Star Wars that they like revived her character. Like Harrison Ford, speaking of Harrison, he always wanted Han Solo to be killed off. He's like, I don't want to do it
Yeah.
anymore. But this is kind of the
Exactly.
opposite. So yeah, I would love to meet and chat with her. She seems very, very cool and a great actress, and always fun to see her characters pop up, like you said. So
She's
uh
a huge Star Wars fan too. Like, I
yeah,
don't know if you follow her on social media, but when that Book of Boba Fett chair was like at Disneyland, at Disney downtown Disney, she
yes.
posted a picture of herself in it.
Oh, that's
Like
awesome.
she like went there and like took a picture just because she's a fan. So it was
How cool.
awesome.
Yeah, that's cool too, to think that, oh, so many, you and I have sat in that chair, and then she went and sat in that chair.
Yeah. And she's
Uh,
tiny. Like she was like
right.
the chair dwarfed her.
Pretty neat. So same question, but with director. Which Star Wars director has had your favorite career outside of Star Wars?
Okay, so I'm gonna go with Ron Howard on this one. And not only does his directing chops hold up, but
Yeah.
the other things he's been involved in just even since he was like what 6 years old as
Yeah.
Opie,
Right.
right? He's Opie in Andy Griffith Show,
Yes.
and then Happy Days is like my favorite show as a teenager. Like
Mhm.
growing up, I'd watch it on Nick at Night, and he of
Yeah.
course is what's his name on that show? Richie.
Richie
Yeah, Richie
Cunningham. Yeah.
Cunningham. Yeah.
How about the Music Man? Did you like that?
Oh, yes, yes, that's right. He's the
Yeah.
Amaryllis. Yes,
Right.
he's the
The
Music
Wells
Man.
Fargo wagon is coming down the street. Yeah.
Yes. And then Apollo 13 is one of
Yeah.
my favorite movies. I mean, that I'd still have memories of seeing that in the theater. Like, wow, that movie blew me away. So, the fact that he directed that
Yeah.
and yeah, it's I really love Ron Howard's career.
He seems like a good guy too. So, and his involvement with like Arrested Development, I always got a
Yes.
kick out of that. So, yeah, great to have him as part of the Star Wars. He stepped in to fill in for Phil Lord and Chris Miller, or the
Yes.
other way around. No, for
I don't
Solo, a
yeah.
Star Wars story. Yeah, but a good guy for sure. Let's go to number 4. Which I like this question. Which is your favorite Star Wars reference or Easter egg from other media? So like when somebody makes a Star Wars reference in another show or movie.
This is so hard because
Yeah.
there's so many. So I'm gonna bring up 2 because I can, and I'm just being yeah. All right. So one of them, 30 Rock. Tina Fey is also a
Yeah.
huge Star Wars fan, and when
Yes.
she dressed her character dressed up as Princess Leia to get out of jury
Yeah.
duty,
Yeah.
that was freaking hilarious. And I think at the time I was trying to get out of jury duty myself because I've been called for jury duty like 6 times. It's
Right.
ridiculous. So, yeah, that was so funny to me. And then
It's a
I
good
just have to
one.
call out Timeless. Have you seen the show Timeless?
No, I don't know Timeless. What's that?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so it's like a historical um it's almost like Star Wars, but it's like history and it's like these 3 people, like almost like a Princess Leia, Han Solo, and
Luke.
Luke Skywalker type,
Uh-huh.
sort of, are traveling through time to stop events from changing time.
Okay.
And so one of them, the woman is a historian. Matt Lanter plays
Oh,
the um he's Logan and he's like a soldier. So he's just there to protect them. He's kind of the Han Solo of the story. He's like
Yeah.
the rogue with a heart of gold. And then they have their pilot who pilots the time machine. And so all three of them travel through time to different events in time, like the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, or um like the 70s Watergate, things like that. And it's like this overall story that's really awesome. And Matt Lanter is a main character in it. This is like 2017 when one of those seasons was coming out.
Hmm.
And he says to one of the bad guys, "Are you trying to use a Jedi mind trick on me?" And it was just really funny because Matt
Right.
Lanter is the
And
voice of Anakin
yeah.
Skywalker. So it was very meta in that he was the one that referenced Star Wars in this
Yeah.
series. So, and he's
That's
kind of the
awesome.
Han Solo character. Like if you look at the character posters, he's like in that role.
So it
It's
sounds, is
great.
it kind of like Quantum Leap, but with multiple
Yes.
people like traveling through time? That's neat.
It's
Is
a
that
lot like Quantum Leap, and they're after a bad guy who is also time traveling, trying to change history.
so? Is
And
that
so you get to see these historic events like through their
right?
eyes, and one of them's a black man and one of them's a woman. So like going back to these
Right.
times where women and black men were not looked on very well, it's like
Right.
integrating in that society. It's a good commentary.
Is this show still on the air or has it ended?
It is not,
Okay.
unfortunately, and it got 2 seasons and they canceled it, but there was a huge groundswell from all of us timeless people. Clock blockers is what we call ourselves. And,
Nice.
they yeah, so they made enough to do a 2-hour finale, which kind of encompassed the 3rd season, what the 3rd season would have been.
Right.
Because it was just very expensive to film because of all the period aspect to it,
Gotcha.
like you'd go in time. Yeah,
It sounds cool. Yeah.
it's amazing.
Justin, our mutual friend Justin in the
Oh,
comments wanted to remind us that Ron Howard was also in American Graffiti from Lucasfilm.
yes.
So that's another connection to George Lucas and Star Wars.
Yeah.
All right. The fifth and final of the 5 Star Wars questions, level 4. I feel like I know the answer to this, and most people are going to pick, I think, what you're going to pick, at least one of them. What is your favorite Lucasfilm project? Speaking of American Graffiti, that's one of them, outside of the Star Wars franchise.
Did you think I was gonna say Indiana Jones?
I did.
Okay, well, you're half right, but I'm also gonna mention theme park
Oh, okay.
involvement.
Yeah.
So, like, the Indiana Jones adventure and
Yeah.
Captain EO, since I can't mention a Star
Right.
Wars project,
Right.
but both of those are really fun, and I'm so glad that even back in the '80s, George Lucas involved himself with Disneyland.
Yeah. That's a long history. People don't often realize that George Lucas was involved with the parks that early on, and
I
Star Wars.
believe
Yeah,
George Lucas went to the very second day that Disneyland was open.
that's
I
right.
think
Yeah, I've heard that
yeah,
story too.
yeah.
But yeah, I think I did the math at some point. It's like more than half of Disneyland's history now has had Star Wars
Oh,
in it, which is cool.
wow. Because
You know,
1987 was
yeah,
Star Tours. Hmm,
right.
amazing.
Okay, that's the
Someone has
five
to do
star.
fast
Yeah.
math because I
Yeah.
can't do that.
I certainly, it took me some paper and a pencil to figure that one out. But Star Wars headlines for this week. Let's see. I read and reviewed a book called From a Certain Point of View, Return of the Jedi. Have you gotten around to that one yet, Sarah?
No, in fact, I have the audiobook, that I'm supposed to read,
Yeah.
but I haven't yet. I haven't
Right.
been able to yet.
I will say I've struggled with these books before. They did Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back for the 40th anniversary. Each book has 40 short stories in it by a variety, 40 different authors. And they're kind of a mixed bag to me. Some of them are better than others. It's just a lot to get through, especially like you said, when we have to review them, it can be like, to me, it was like I don't
It's a
know, it's like a
book.
speed
I got
run.
it.
Yeah,
I
it's
got it in
pretty
the mail
it's
and yeah.
600-page book.
Wow.
So to get through all that in a few days, it was challenging. And I think I wish I could take my time with it. I think I would probably enjoy it more. But there were some certain stories that stuck out to me. There's one story about the Imperial officer that arrests Luke Skywalker on Endor. When Luke like surrenders himself to the Empire on the forest moon of Endor, and there's the Imperial officer who like takes him in, and
Yeah.
there's this discussion that they have before he brings him to Darth Vader. kind of fills in one of the gaps there in the movie. And that was probably my favorite one of all the stories in this book. But like I said, it's kind of a mixed bag. Some are better than others. I felt like too many of the stories lean toward the comedy side, which isn't
Mm.
always my favorite unless it's like really like genuinely funny. There was one story that was about like another Imperial, I think it was a Death Star gunner, and his dream was to retire and start selling safety railings to the Empire because like he's like, I'm gonna make billions of credits by selling safety railings because we need them on the Death Star and all the other ships, which is it's just like an old joke. We've heard this so many times, people pointing out, oh, there's no
Adult
railings.
Swim,
Right.
right?
It
Yeah.
does feel like a robot chicken
Yeah.
kind of thing. Exactly. So your mileage may vary on this book. The audiobook has some celebrity guests, actually. John Hamm from Mad
Ooh,
Men reads one of the stories. Adam Scott from Parks and Recreation reads one of the stories. And then Sam Witwer he's the voice of Darth Maul in the cartoons. He reads one of the stories as Emperor Palpatine. And then you got the other stories read by the usual suspects of the audiobook readers who are all very talented. So go and check that out if you like the other ones. I thought it was a mixed bag. That's kind of my review of From a Certain Point of View, Return of the Jedi. We had new comic books come out this week. I haven't gotten around to reading them yet. I just kind of got back from the comic shop like half an
oh
hour
yeah.
ago. But Bounty Hunters number 37 is out. Hyperspace Stories from Dark Horse Comics number 8, and then issue number 3 of The Mandalorian season 2 adaptation is out
Okay.
today as well. But I haven't had time to read or review these yet. The reviews will be going up soon on laughingplace.com. And Sarah, I know you've told me in the past you use the Marvel Unlimited app, right, to catch
I
up
do.
on Star Wars comics. Where is that up to now? What has been some of the stuff that you've been reading lately?
Um, Ms. Marvel,
Oh, okay.
Scarlet Witch. So no, I have not been keeping up with them. I kept up with the Star Wars comics for about 2 or 3 years when they
Yeah.
rebooted them in
Right.
2015. And then they changed the artwork on the main Star Wars line, and it just threw me out of it. Like, for me,
Okay.
the artwork is a big thing. Like,
Sure.
even in animated movies or something, like, if I don't like the art or the design, I just can't get into it. So, when they changed that up, I was like, "Eh," and then I kinda lost, like, once you get out of it, it's hard to, like, get back in. It's like a running river. It's like the
Right.
EAC, the East Australia
Yeah.
Current, It's like you get thrown out, you're like, "Oh, no, now I gotta get back in. I don't know where to start."
And
So,
it's tough to
yeah,
catch up because they churn these things out.
yeah,
There was a period there where there were too many, I think, coming out. Speaking of like over Star Wars overload almost, but now they're back to
yeah.
like a couple, one or two a week, which I think is more appropriate. And
Okay.
right now they have this pretty cool crossover event going on right now called Dark Droids, where
Oh,
all the droids in the galaxy get taken over by this uh kind of evil artificial intelligence that acts like a virus. So it's a pretty unique story for Star Wars. I haven't really seen that kind of thing before, but I'm enjoying that. And I
well,
think at least yeah,
I have a
go ahead.
question for you then.
Sure.
On Laughing Place, is there like a good summary of like this is what you should read? Like what order? Like I would appreciate that as a fan,
Hmm.
like a
Not
reading
on
list.
not on Laughing Place, but I want to say that I would recommend going to Wikipedia
Okay.
for this. They have a great resource that's the canon timeline. And
Oh,
it's just everything in the current canon. And they have it for Legends as well. So if you want to go through the Legends timeline, you can. But there's Legends in the canon timeline, and you can read through. There's just a list. It's just a list of every piece of media that has been
huh.
released in the order that it takes place. So that's probably my favorite resource when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Okay.
That would be my recommendation. It's a little obviously there's a lot of stuff, so it might be tough to sift through. But if you manage to find where you want to pick up
Jump
the
in.
comics, yeah, the comics right
Okay.
now take place between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. So that would
Hmm.
be the place to hunt for that. Okay, let's go on to some Ahsoka news. So Hasbro, the toy company, had their live fan stream this week, and they announced some new action figures from Star Wars Ahsoka for the Black Series, which is the 6-inch scale, the vintage collection, which is the 3 3/4 inch scale, and then the retro collection, which are the 3 3/4 inch figures that look like the old Star Wars action figures. So those all have new figures coming out for Ahsoka. We've got pictures of them all on laughingplace.com. You can also visit Hasbro Pulse and pre-order a lot of that stuff. And then I got to interview. So this has been coming up more regularly. I'm actually really happy about this. The Hasbro team apparently trusts me, and they invite me to talk to them like once every couple of months, it seems. But I got to interview them actually before these announcements were made. But it was more. This interview was more about the HasLab. Do you know about this? The Ghost
Yeah, the
Ship
ghost.
HasLab project. So yeah, it got funded. It's the 3 3/4 inch scale vintage collection Ghost. It's a huge ship, and it's going to be made. It's going to be shipped out to people, but they want to get all the. They have these stretch goal tiers where if a certain amount of people back the project, it's kind of like crowdfunded. You'll unlock more action figures that will be included with the set, like Kanan, Jarrus, and Zeb Aurelios will be
Ooh.
coming with the Ghost. If a certain, I think it's like 17,000 people have to back it, and then all the characters will come out with the ship. But during that interview, the point I'm trying to make here is I got to ask a question. I've been fixating on this thing where they released the black. I've got it back here. The Black Series Doc Ondar from
Oh
Star
yeah.
Wars Galaxy's Edge. And I've been fixating on the idea that they didn't put a beard on him because he famously has a beard. Here's the above me on the shelf there is the logo for Doc Ondar's shop. And
Oh,
even in the logo, he's got a beard, and they didn't put a beard on the figures. I was like, why didn't that happen? So I was like, oh, I have a direct line to the folks at Hasbro, the Star Wars team. So I had to ask them during this interview why there was no beard. So I'm going to play a clip of me asking this question from the Hasbro team. If you're watching this live, you're not going to hear it. You will hear it on the released audio version of this episode. This is me asking Chris Reif, who is the designer, the actual designer of the Star Wars action figures, why Doc Ondar does not have a beard. And that's Chris's answer to why Doc Ondar doesn't have a beard. I don't know if I'm satisfied with that. But yeah, his suggestion was to go out and make your own beard. Like, why?
oh,
I know. He said because the beard is kind of wispy. And if you go to
yeah.
Galaxy's Edge and look at the Doc Ondar animatronic, it's not like hair. It's not like my
Mm.
thick beard. It's just kind of wispy. It would be tough for them to make it in action figure form. But he suggested just kind of like getting some strands of thread or something and making your own beard. But I thought it was a funny answer, and I'm still a little disappointed with the figure, but I do like it
Oh,
otherwise.
okay.
Um, no, I'm
All
just
the accessories that it came with is
yeah.
pretty cool, right?
Yeah, very cool. It comes with like the holocrons, the Sith and the Jedi holocron, the sword that he gets in the comic book, and I think like a clone trooper helmet. He collects all those different artifacts
Yeah.
from throughout the galaxy. Very happy to have it. I just wish it was a tiny bit more true to the way that the animatronic looks. But I'm a very faithful purchaser, a collector of all these Star Wars toys, so that's probably not going to stop anytime soon. Even though I'm slightly disappointed. More exciting Ahsoka news. So Disney kind of revealed the numbers, the viewership that came in from the first episode of Ahsoka. Apparently, 14 million people watched it over that first week, which I guess is good. Although we don't really have much to compare it to because they don't
Yeah.
often release the numbers. I don't know. Does that sound like a lot to you, Sarah? I
It
guess
does
so.
sound like a lot. However, there was another I saw somewhere else that someone released there was like 1 million views in the first 4 days or so. So I don't know where these are coming from.
Yeah.
I I don't know where these numbers are coming from. I'm assuming that Disney can count.
Right.
Um yeah, so it's really hard to tell, but it's not like the Nielsen ratings
Yeah.
back in the day. So
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't really know what's real.
I know
I think that
Nielsen.
sounds good.
It does sound good because you feel like even the best, most popular, like TV shows on network television are not getting anywhere near that these days. So I don't think so. Um,
Right, and I do have to say it is in the zeitgeist. So,
yeah,
myself, I have on my car a decal, window decal of Ahsoka, and I took my car in on Tuesday, to get it serviced, and the guy at the dealership, I was picking up my car, and he's like, "Oh, are you gonna watch Ahsoka tonight? I'm assuming you're a fan," because he saw my car,
yeah,
and I was like, "Oh, yeah," and then, like, I saw online other people had some conversations that day with, like, people who weren't normally into Star Wars asking them about Ahsoka, "Are you gonna watch Ahsoka tonight?" And he was like, "Yes, blah, 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 blah," like
right.
um, yeah, so it's in the zeitgeist, which yeah.
Yeah, it's out there. People are knowing about it. Hopefully, people are watching it. It seems like they're proud of how many people watched it. So good for them. I'm glad it's getting some viewers. I know
Yes.
part of the like demands from the writers and the writer's strike that's going on right now is like more transparency as far as like how many people are watching these things. So
Mhm.
hopefully that will become part of the way these streaming services operate in sometime in the future where we'll have a better understanding of how many people are actually tuning in. And then lastly, kind of speaking of Ahsoka being out there in the world, there's a new official commercial to kind of toot my own horn here for a second for Star Wars Ahsoka. I think it's airing on TV, but you could go and watch it on YouTube on the official Star Wars YouTube channel. And I personally am quoted. My there's a quote from my written review of episodes 1 and 2 of Ahsoka that's in there. I thought it was a little funny that the quote that they chose doesn't really indicate whether or not I liked the show. It's the quote is like, "The adventure is only beginning," which is true of those first 2 episodes, and it was from my review, but it's not really like a positive or a negative, I don't think. I've wanted this. I will admit that I've wanted this for a while because Mike Mack, who is the Laughing Place Marvel guy. He reviews all the Marvel Studios stuff, and he's always quoted in these ads. You always see his name on there. And I was
Whoa.
so jealous. I was like, I want one in a Star Wars ad. But the problem is I can't bring myself to not be honest in these reviews. So half the time I don't, half the time I'm not being very like effusive in my praise. But occasionally something does come along where I am gushing about it. And I really do like Ahsoka. So they must have noted that and sought out, they do ask permission. They reach out and they say, "Oh, can we use this quote
Oh.
in the ad?" Which is cool. Have you guys had that
Uh,
experience?
No, but we did that's amazing, first of all,
No, thank
Mike.
you.
That's
Thank you.
that's so cool. Like, I know when we go to press events, they often ask for your little,
Yeah,
little comments, right? And I always comment, not really expecting anything.
right.
So, that's awesome that you got to that. Most recently, in the fan event, Disney had, like, 5 fan events at once, and they sent out, media teams to every one to capture video and things. So, in the official, like, reel that they made for the Ahsoka fan events, Richard and I are featured almost immediately in one of those at the beginning. So
Nice.
that was pretty fun, but
Yeah.
I think it's awesome that they use your quote. So
Well,
amazing.
you guys are more photogenic than I am, and I think I'm better at writing than I am at talking, so I think it makes sense that they would, just choose my words. But at least it was just cool because sometimes they'll just say "Laughing Place," but they'd actually
Yes.
put my name, Mike Celestino
Yeah.
Laughing Place, and it's only for, like, a second, if that, but, still pretty cool. I feel accomplished. I feel like,
Yeah.
at least they know I exist. This is all I really want. Um,
You
and yeah,
should. That's amazing.
you can like I said, it's not that quote is not an endorsement of the show, although I do really like it. But you can take it from me that I don't really ever write a review that I don't stand by. Like, you and I saw Haunted Mansion with Richard at the press screening. And none of us really cared for that film, and I did not give it a positive review.
Our review
So
is not as good either.
yeah, so you know that when I don't like something, I'm not gonna praise it, but, when I do like something, I hope that they notice, and I like that they, singled me out in that way. I thought that was really cool, kind of an honor as a huge, huge Star Wars fan to be part of it like that. Okay, that's the end of Star Wars headlines for this week. And that brings us to our main topic for this week's episode. We are going to be talking about episode 3 of Star Wars Ahsoka. The title of this episode is Time to Fly. But before we get into that, Sarah, now you mentioned earlier that you're a big Ahsoka fan in general. So tell me a little bit about your history with this character. Now, she didn't appear until 15 years ago, 2008, with the Clone Wars movie. So were you an early adopter of Ahsoka, like right from the beginning when she showed up?
So I have to say, my Ahsoka fandom is part and parcel with Ashley Eckstein and her universe.
Okay.
So Ashley Eckstein is the voice of Ahsoka Tano, and so Ahsoka as a character, I was like, "Oh, this is cool. There's a Padawan, for Anakin." I didn't think much of it until Star Wars Celebration, was it 5? And I think 2010 when we went to Orlando, and her universe had like their very first booth there at that celebration, and I met Ashley Eckstein, and I learned that she basically started this company because she was promoting Clone Wars and saw that girls didn't have anything to wear. All she could wear was like guys' t-shirts with Star Wars on it. So she started her own freaking company
Yeah.
because of that, which that's I mean, come on, that's amazing. And later on I learned that her mantra, Ashley Eckstein's mantra, is what would Ahsoka do? And so,
Nice.
like, a lot of what she's done in her life and started is she's used this mantra, what would Ahsoka do? So, like, the two in my head are synonymous together. And then the Clone Wars started coming out. Um, Richard and I started our podcast. I also started to be on the podcast Fangirls Going Rogue. And we started getting all these invites to press stuff for Star Wars Rebels when that show came out. So, through that show, through my fangirl friends, we all met. My fangirl friends met because of Ashley Eckstein and her Universe Fangirl of the Day campaign, which was in 2012, 2013. So we met and started Fangirls Going Rogue because of Ahsoka, because of Ashley Eckstein.
Nice.
So it's like this huge thing in my life. And so that's where that fandom comes. And right now, where the fandom is I feel like Ahsoka really embodies what it is to act like a Jedi, not be a part of the structure of the Jedi,
Right.
not, she actually acts. It's a lot like organized religion. Sometimes a lot of the people I know in organized religion or have known growing up haven't been the nicest people.
Right.
It's the people who just act good, like do good every day, and maybe are not a part of an organized religion. They seem like better people to me. So
Mhm.
that's not putting down anyone in organized religion. Was raised Catholic myself, so I see both sides. So to me, Ahsoka embodies what a Jedi should act like.
And I think, we're going to get into that theme as we
Mhm.
talk about this specific episode, because I feel like that comes up, the idea of the rules of the Jedi Order versus what is the actual like intent of the Jedi as
Yeah.
an organization, or as a concept, as a way of life, basically. So that definitely is a theme of this week's episode. But before we get into that, I still want to ask you about last week's premiere. So first of all, you mentioned Ashley Eckstein and her connection. Obviously, she is the voice of Ahsoka Tano in animation to this day. We got the Tales of the
Tales of the
Jedi
Jedi.
series last year. Was that last year? Yeah, I think so. Or anyway, recently, within the last like 6 to 8 months. Um, and I really like that show. And I think we're getting more episodes of that. I don't know if Ahsoka will be in them, but I know, whenever that character pops up in the animation, it is Ashley Eckstein. But in live action, it has been Rosario Dawson in The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, and now in the Ahsoka show. So what have you thought? Do you feel the same connection to the character now that it's a different actress in live action, or is there a little bit more distance there now that you don't have the Ashley Eckstein's presence?
That's a really good question. Hasn't been put quite that way to me before. I feel like I still feel that connection. And a lot of that is because I've made my own connection to Rosario Dawson and her personality, her
Mm,
persona. Um, Mostly at Star Wars Celebration. Again, Star Wars Celebrations are great for like, getting
Yeah.
exposed to the actors themselves. So when she was on the main stage, the celebration stage where you can just go and get up close to them if you can, she was there and I happened to be in the room at Star Wars Celebration Anaheim
Right.
2022.
Hmm.
And she was there with Natasha Liu-Bordizzo, and that was her first exposure to Star Wars fans. So
Hmm.
Natasha was kind of like, "Oh, like this is crazy." And Rosario Dawson had this like presence and very calm personality, and just anything she was asked, she had this ready answer that seemed just laced with wisdom. And I was like, "Okay, I can see her as Ahsoka." So that to me, I'm really glad I experienced that. Um, because before that, I think I was a little sad that Ashley Eckstein wasn't cast
Hmm.
um, as Ahsoka. But I understand why. I mean, and Rosario also on social media famously, she has tweeted hashtag Ahsoka lives before, like back when we were
Yeah.
all tweeting that and things. So she was also a fan. So it's just good to have Star Wars fans portraying these characters.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed. And I know she, at the very least, I know that she campaigned a little bit because it was like a fan
Yes.
casting kind of thing where like people were like, oh, Rosario Dawson kind of looks like Ahsoka. And then she kind of, I think she retweeted some of that. And then I
Yes.
know the other thing that's really cool about the whole situation is that I know Rosario and Ashley have kind of befriended each other in recent years. I know they were at Celebration this year in London. They were doing like photo ops together. Like you could
Oh,
get
cool. Yes, that's
a
right.
picture with both
Did you do
Ahsokas.
that?
No, I did not. But that's a
Okay.
really cool. I just think like, oh, it's amazing that they're supporting each other in that way. So we have, there's two Ahsokas, just like we have two Anakins, Hayden Christensen and Matt Lanter.
Yeah.
We have two Ahsokas for, one for live action and one for animation. Okay, let's get into the last week's premiere, the two episodes that we saw at the fan events. What was your initial reaction walking out of that?
Oh my gosh. I mean, it was so cinematic and beautiful. It was a treat to be able to watch this on a big
Yeah,
screen. And I was really expecting nothing less from Dave Filoni, who his artisticness and just his mise en scène, for
right.
different shots and things are
Hmm.
like they're beautiful, even a man in animation and now in live action. And so I also love the color schemes he chooses, like for different locations and planets. Like the planet we see Ahsoka first find that map, which we
Yeah.
learn later is like kind of related to the Night
Yeah.
Sisters,
Hmm.
right? So it was mostly white rock and then like black, like lava rock or something. So it was like black and white, very stark. And then now we're getting to this planet in episode 3 where it's all reds.
Right.
So it's really cool how he uses these colors to give an emotional response out of things. And I really loved like the nods to Star Wars, like the opening of Star Wars with the opening shot of episode 1.
Yeah.
You had like the big ship coming
Right.
and then you had like the little ship, things like that. And then I just want to give a huge shout out to the music because Kevin Kiner, he began his Star Wars journey with the Clone Wars all the way back
Yeah.
in 2008. He's composed Star Wars Rebels. He's composed the what is it? The Light of the Jedi. What's the Tales of the Jedi?
Yeah. Hmm.
All of that. And now he's getting to compose live action for this series and just continue his Star Wars symphony. And he's continuing these themes. In fact, the latest episode of Skywalking Through Neverland, I did a whole breakdown of the music from
Oh, cool.
episodes 1 through 3. So I very much recommend you watch that. You can watch it now on YouTube or you can wait for the podcast version tomorrow. But
Yeah. I'm gonna listen
yeah,
on my commute tomorrow to Disneyland. But
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, there's some really interesting callbacks and things that he does. And it's amazing. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, your commute tomorrow. Yes, we're gonna be at the same place tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. How do you feel about the pacing? Now, this is the
Ah,
big topic of conversation. People Some people have thought it's too slow. I really liked the way the first 2 episodes were paced, but how did you feel about that aspect?
So, my thoughts and feelings have changed. So at first,
Okay.
yeah, I thought it was a little slow, but then you watch it and you realize you really have to take these together, all these episodes together, because each episode is kind of gearing up a little faster. It's like laying the groundwork, the first episode, the
Yeah.
second episode, you're still getting a little bit of that groundwork, but then you get like the Chopper Hera, scene and the fight scene and everything's revving up there. And now episode 3 was just like shot out of
Right.
a rocket. Like it did not let you go. So it's a lot like Andor in that way, a little bit.
It is
And I
like Andor,
appreciated
yeah.
Andor a lot. So and this is what you
Yes.
can do in TV series. You can take your
Right.
time a little bit so that and the more you watch, I think the more you get out of each scene. Like I've probably talked over episodes 1 and 2 about 5 times now in 5 different conversations.
Yeah.
Some recorded, some not, but like I'm still learning things and seeing things. So it's very deep. You can get a lot out of these episodes if you pay attention.
Yeah, totally agreed. And I also agree that I liked that it was taking its time. As of last week, I'll get into, my thoughts on this week's episode in a minute, but I want to say I ran into my friend Noah Nelson at the comic book shop this morning. He's been on this show previously as well, and he's been frustrated with Ahsoka. He
Hmm.
said Star Wars Rebels is one of his favorite pieces of Star Wars media, but he thinks that Dave Filoni probably wrote this Ahsoka story as a movie and then broke it up into pieces, which is kind of what it feels like.
Hmm.
It's when you watch it all at once, it's probably going to be feel like 5-hour movie or something like that across the 8 episodes. Um, and that kind of it's a good segue to get into talking about this week's episode because this is the first one that I got a little frustrated with. Um,
Oh.
and I'll ask your opinion in a minute, but I thought it was really good. I liked everything that happened in it, was glued to the screen as always, but it felt like half an episode to me
Hmm.
because of this pacing, and I do like the pacing overall, but it is slower. It does take its time more. The scenes are longer, but then when you have a 35-minute episode like we do this week, you only have room for like 4 or 5 scenes and then it's done. It just like I needed more. I just wanted more this week. And I guess it's good to leave you wanting more, but it just felt unfulfilling to me as an individual episode. I'm sure it will work better for me as part of the whole. Like when the season's over, we can watch all this as a marathon. I'm sure this will feel like an essential piece of that. But as an individual episode, I felt unsatisfied, especially by the ending, which felt to me more like we were going into like a commercial break because
The
uh
music is gearing up
yeah, that's
with
just
those
what it felt
pizzicato
like to me.
strings. Yeah.
Yeah, because the ending shot of this episode, they're just kind of slow zooming in on the character Balin Skull, the kind of we don't really know what to call him yet. If he's like a dark Jedi, if he's I don't know if they're Sith or what, but um and he's like, "Oh, we're gonna hunt Ahsoka and Sabine in their ship in the forest there on that like autumn planet. It's like an autumn planet because all the leaves are orange,
Yeah.
like you mentioned."
Yeah,
Um,
Richard was like, "It's
but I was just
Boston."
like, yeah. But I just like to me that felt like act break. If you're talking about like TV writing, that's an act break, and then you come back from commercial and continue from there. And it just felt like, oh, I gotta wait another week to get more of that. So that was kind of my frustration with this week's episode, Time to Fly. What were your thoughts coming out of this one?
Interesting. Mike, my thoughts were the exact opposite.
Okay.
I felt like very satisfied with this episode. I thought the pacing was a little faster. You
Yeah.
got confirmation of things that we've been speculating about, like again in all these conversations I've had, like the Purgles. Purgles show up. You're like, yes, there's the Purgle. Then you get the confirmation that the Purgle have their migration patterns going to
Yes.
this other galaxy
I
like
did
that
think
we
that was
all
interesting.
speculated. Yeah,
Yeah.
we all speculated about that. It's confirmed here. We got okay, in the first couple episodes we see Hera, where's Jason?
Yeah.
where's Jason? Like, if you're a big follower of Star Wars Rebels, you know that she has like this child
Mhm.
with Kanan, who unfortunately passed in Star Wars Rebels, and yet here's Jason. It's like, oh, so we saw Jason, and I teared up. I was like, oh my god, it's so anyway.
Okay,
So
I have a
I got
question for
that.
you about that.
Yes.
This is a good time to segue into that. When
Okay.
that happened in the show, because Tori and my wife Tori, Tori
Yes.
and I watched Rebels when that was coming out,
Hmm.
and we were both were there when the finale aired together, and we saw Jason Syndulla for the first time. I thought it was so cool that they picked this name from the
Yes.
Legends continuity, one of
I love that so much.
Han and Leia's original children from that
Hmm.
timeline that Dave Filoni chose to pay homage to that. Um, but my big question, and Tori was especially bothered by this, I think, is that Jason Syndulla essentially looks human, except he's got green hair. Why didn't he get any like Twi'lek features? Do you understand that?
You know what? You're gonna have to ask the doctors in Star Wars to know what are the uh what is it? Traits, the traits that are the
Right.
big traits
Dominant,
versus recessive. Yeah,
dominant
dominant
versus
versus
yeah,
recessive.
okay.
Maybe Leiku are a recessive trait.
Okay.
And that's what I gotta tell you on that.
It actually reminds me there's have you seen the movie Muppets Most Wanted?
Yes.
There's like a dream sequence in that movie where Kermit and Miss Piggy are married and they have little babies and the babies are
Oh.
like half frog and half pig. And I remembered seeing that in the theater with Tori and she was like horrified by these freak babies that are like mutants. So I don't know. She might have been bothered if they went too far in the Twi'lek or Twi'lek, whichever
Yeah.
way you want to pronounce it, direction.
Well, you know what I was bothered by is that
Yeah.
Jason on screen in live action did not have green eyebrows, because that's
Oh,
what brings it home.
okay.
He just had dark eyebrows and green, like a
See,
green wig.
I remember there was some shot of him in one of the ads or trailers. You just saw him from the back in the like
Oh,
uh
okay. Oh, in
shotgun,
the
like
trailer?
in the cockpit. Yeah.
Oh,
I think somebody
okay.
pointed that out and somebody thought that he didn't have green hair, but it seemed like they followed through and at least made his hair green in this episode. But
Yes.
yeah, I guess if the
No,
eyebrows didn't match the hair,
it did not.
that's no good. So,
Yeah.
all we really learn about Jason in this episode is that he wants to be a Jedi. That's
Yes.
all the screen time that
Auntie
he got.
Sabine. Auntie Sabine is training.
Right. Yeah. So
That
we
was
we don't
cute.
know if he's like showing any indication that he has aptitude for the Force, whether or not that even matters anymore. We'll get into in a little
Yeah.
bit.
Mhm.
I do want to mention Time to Fly was directed by Steph Green, who also directed last week's second episode. It was written by Dave Filoni. The director of photography again was Kuyen Tran, who did the movie Palm Springs, and the editor this week was James D. Wilcox, who did the movie 13 Lives. Guest stars, we mentioned Jason Syndulla. He was played by Evan Whitten. And then we got a guest appearance by Chancellor Mon Mothma, played
Yay.
by Genevieve O'Reilly, who has played that role in Revenge of the Sith, in Rogue One, and in Andor. Let's talk about this scene because we also get an appearance by another character from a animated Star Wars show, Senator Hamato Ziono, who is the father of Kazuto Ziono or Kaz from Star Wars Resistance. And Senator Ziono is the one who doesn't want to give Hera not the Rebel fleet anymore, but the New Republic fleet to go and hunt for Grand Admiral Thrawn. What were your thoughts on this scene?
First of all, I love that they pulled that from the animation.
Yeah.
I think that's great. That's the series is a little under the radar, I think,
Right.
kind of
That's
came
a
and
yeah,
went.
Resistance is kinda like the forgotten Star
Yeah.
Wars animation. We have like, I haven't even done an episode talking about that. It's just like, I don't think anyone really watched it or remembered it except for, like, the really hardcore fans.
Right. I mean, we watched it. There's some really fun moments, and you get CB-23 out of that, which is like the BB-8 that's a girl droid. It's so cute.
Yeah.
So this scene Well, first of all, it was teased in a trailer, so we knew that
Yeah.
Xiono people were like, "Oh, that's probably Xiono, Senator Xiono." So, Mon Mothma here seems kinda stuck between a rock and a hard place again. You know, she seems to always be in these situations where she wants to help or wants to
Right.
do something, but something is pulling her back. In this case, now it's the bureaucratic government. And so yeah, I thought this was a great scene, and I really felt I wanna give props to Hera Syndulla. Mary Elizabeth Winstead is playing
Yeah.
her. I thought in the first 2 episodes, you know, she was portrayed okay, but in this one, in this scene in particular, I thought they had a really good, connection and repartee, and Hera was really, like, fighting for herself like she does in the series of Star Wars Rebels. So I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
What did you think about this scene?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. Like you said, the bureaucracy, and this has been touched upon in other Star Wars media recently, is this stuff that's taking place between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens, where like, yeah, the Empire is not around, but there is a lot of like red tape to get through. Like we've seen it in The Mandalorian, like this question of
Oh, yeah.
whether or not like ex Imperials can be trusted working for the New Republic, which came up in both The Mandalorian and here in Ahsoka. So that's always really interesting to me. So yeah, uh, I've said this a bunch before on the show. I always will prefer a scene where people are standing around talking and we're getting information to an action scene, which is
Ah,
most of the rest of the episode is like that big space battle, and it's like, yeah, okay, I don't know. I like getting info. Maybe that's just my preference because the episode starts with Ahsoka and Hu Yang training Sabine, and that's kind of an extended. That's like a big chunk of the kind of the cold open before we even get to the credits, and it's a good place for me to ask you too about this other question I had. Now, this was addressed last week and in this week's episode, this idea that Sabine isn't really force sensitive, which has been established. She's a good sword fighter. We knew that from Star Wars Rebels, but she doesn't have access to the force in the way that a Jedi would. And Hu Yang points that out multiple times. And he's like, well, you know, ordinarily we wouldn't even be accepting her into the Jedi Academy or the, you know, the temple on Coruscant in the old days. And Ahsoka, like we mentioned before, she's more of the idea that we can do away. I think she wants to do away with these old ideas of what constitutes a Jedi, or can someone be trained in the ways of a Jedi without being a Jedi? Because she has that line in this episode, like, maybe a Jedi isn't really even what I'm looking for. So I found that to be really interesting. I don't know. What are your thoughts on the training of Sabine
yes.
in these episodes?
Well, I think this goes back to Ahsoka leaving the Jedi Order,
Yeah,
and because she didn't, you know, the Jedi Order had its issues, had its problems, which is why it
yeah,
imploded, because they were, like, so dogmatic about their doctrine that they didn't realize what it was doing to actual people,
right.
and so that's where it comes back to Ahsoka being and embodying what it is to be a Jedi. So I feel that she says 2 lines in this episode which really clarify things for me. One of them is training and focus are what truly define success. So you've heard that in our lives, you know, spend
Yeah,
10,000 hours doing something
yep,
and you'll be, you know, all of a sudden good at it. Or, you know, like you need to put in that time
right.
in order to be a master at
And
something.
just to cut in there real quick, the line that precedes that I also really liked as well, which is she says, "Talent is a factor."
Yes.
Which is like, yeah, you can be born with an innate ability, like a lot of the Jedi are, but
Yes.
in order to get really good at something, you have to commit yourself fully to the idea of training
Yes. Okay,
and
this is
yeah.
reminding me of the movie Rudy. Rudy is exactly this.
Yeah.
Rudy, all he wants to be
Right.
is a Notre Dame football player.
That's
He
right.
is not built to be a Notre Dame football player. And
Yeah.
yet his heart and his drive is 400% any other football player on that
Yeah.
team, right? And that is kind of Sabine here. Sabine is the Rudy
Yeah.
of all the Padawans here.
I didn't
So
yeah, I didn't think of Rudy, but I did think of, like, the idea of creative talent, which I'm guessing
yes.
is probably where Dave Filoni is coming from. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
you can be born with the innate ability to, or, I feel like I have a good understanding, personally, me personally, I have a good understanding of story structure just from consuming media throughout, my 43 years of existence, but I haven't put forth the work of what it takes to write a screenplay. I have never been able to do that. And I think, that's the difference between somebody who
Mm,
knows media and understands media and somebody who can create media. And I think that's kind of what Filoni is going for here. But you had a second line that you wanted to
I
quote.
did.
I before I cut you off.
No problem, no problem. So Ahsoka says, "I don't need her to be a Jedi. I need her to be herself."
Yeah.
And I feel like that is saying so much. It's like if you believe in yourself and your ability, then you will and you put in the training and effort, you will be good at that. Like, so Sabine is an artist. She's artistic. When she's drawing or painting or something, she is perhaps tapping into her midichlorians, her force sensitivity to like make it perfect or something like that.
Yeah.
There are people who say that Han Solo has innate force connection when he's piloting because he has these reactions that are near, like Jedi
Mm,
like. So it's kind of like you have to find your special gift
right.
to quote Encanto. The movie Encanto, each character has their special
Yeah.
gift that you're good at. I ask kids, that movie is great. Like when I work with kids, I ask them, what's your special gift? Okay, who can draw well? Who
Yeah.
can run fast? Who can, like it's things like that that once you're doing something on a level, like when I play music in a symphony orchestra, when I was doing that, in high school, like I just felt like I was on another plane of existence when I
Right.
was creating that music. So I feel like that's what Sabine needs to find and unlock in herself, that thing that she herself is good at. And when she unlocks that, believes in herself, then she'll be tapping into whatever force that she's able to. I think that's what Ahsoka says when she says, I don't need her to be a Jedi. I need her to be
Mm.
herself and believe in herself.
So do you think by the end of these 8 episodes we will see Sabine use the Force in the way that we're familiar? Like, will she be able
I
to move
don't.
that cup?
I don't think she'll be able to move the cup. I think
Okay.
it'll be unlocked when she's doing something
Something
else, like
else.
fighting with the blasters and stuff, sabers, because she's trained that all her life. She's a Mandalorian, or she's creating something because
Hmm.
she's also a creator. I really like attached to Sabine because she's an artist and yet she's also technically very able, and
Yeah.
I'm that way too. Like I'm very artistic and yet I do all the technical stuff for skywalking and things. Like it's something, yeah, so I think she just needs to believe in herself and her abilities and think of the force outside the box. She's not going to
Right.
be able to move rocks. She's going to do it in a different way.
It's a pretty interesting approach, and I like the direction that they're going with it. And I kind of well, I kind of hope that you're right. I hope that she doesn't just become a Jedi because we've seen that so many times. But I'm always in
Mhm.
favor of them doing something different. So I hope that you're right. I'd be a little disappointed if they go in the direction of, oh, her arc is just that she's going to be able to move stuff by the end.
Right.
But yeah, I love your idea. I love that, as just like, again, kind of thinking outside the box of different ways people can approach the Force and becoming not necessarily a Jedi, but just kind of growing into themselves, I guess is exactly what you
Yeah.
quoted from from Ahsoka. So
Yeah.
we get in, they come out of hyperspace at this planet, and they're immediately attacked by these ships. You've got um, the Night Sister lady whose name is Morgan Elsbeth.
Shin.
Uh,
Oh,
oh yeah, but she's so Elsbeth is kind of in that hyperspace ring that they're going to
yes.
use to go to the other galaxy, and
The
then
Eye
you've
of
got,
Sion, is that what it's
oh,
called?
did they call it that? I missed that.
It's some
Um,
or maybe not.
Okay.
Okay,
You
I
might
don't
be right. You might be right. And then,
yeah,
like you said, Shin Hati is the apprentice of Balin Skull. She's out there with that
with the red
Inquisitor
shirts.
type guy,
Yeah.
Marok, I think is his name. And they're in those little fighters and they're fighting. Oh, what did you think of the spacewalk that I got a text?
Okay.
I got a text from a friend after the episode was over, and he said, that's how you do a spacewalk in Star Wars, probably referring to the Leia thing in The Last Jedi, which I don't have a problem with, but I guess
Oh.
um, but we haven't. This is another thing we haven't seen before in live action. I think they've done it in the animation a few times, but like somebody putting on a spacesuit and going out and standing on the ship, which my little snarky remark to Tori as we were watching the episode was, well, why don't they just shoot at the parts of the ship where Ahsoka's not standing? But I don't know. What did you think of this action scene?
I thought that was effing awesome. I was freaking out. I was like, "Ah, it's Ahsoka in her spacesuit with the little
Yeah,
place for her to group
right.
her whatever Montrails and
Montrals and
yes,
Leku and all that. Yeah.
yes, the Ahsoka at Disneyland appropriately said, "Yes, these are Montrails," when I called them Leku. I was like, "Oh,
Okay.
sorry." Yeah,
Okay, wait.
but
Now to go into that real quick, I did a little
okay.
bit more research on that, and I think this part at the top here are Montrals, and this part hanging down are Leku, even in a Togruta, according to Wikipedia. But that's
Oh.
neither here nor there. Let's continue with
Okay.
your thoughts.
Well, I thought that was awesome. She is leaping around. I'm like, dude, this is cool. This is new, something new in Star Wars.
Yeah,
And I had that down for your question of any favorite moment from
yeah.
this episode. That was like my favorite.
Oh,
It
that's
was her
yeah.
leaping. And also, I want to say that that space fight was not just a fight. It was Ahsoka and Sabine learning from each other. Not
Hmm.
only is Sabine learning from Ahsoka, but Ahsoka had to kind of realize, okay, I need to like give and take with Sabine here in order to be a better master. And she learned a little something being the
Hmm.
teacher. So, because like when they started working together and
Yeah,
Ahsoka started asking, okay, Sabine, when do I do this? And Sabine's like, okay, now, like that's when they started, really working.
yeah.
So another reason why I loved this episode, because
Okay.
fights are not just dog fights. They're
Fitting
learning
into the theme.
things. Yes.
Yeah, I liked it too. It was a lot of fun, and of course, it ends with the big climactic reveal of the Purrgil, like we mentioned
Ah!
earlier, which were I believe, first seen ever in Rebels.
Yes.
And then we
In kind of
saw
a throwaway episode, people were, like, not liking this
right,
episode where the whales showed up, and yet they turn out to be, like, the crux of the whole series. It's
such a
pretty awesome.
key part of the finale of Rebels where they whisk
Yes.
Grand Admiral Thrawn and Ezra Bridger off to somewhere else, which we're eventually going to get to. I think
Mhm.
part of the frustration, N not so much on my end because 'cause I'm okay. I hope by episode 5 we're into, like, Thrawn, because
Yeah.
I wanna spend some
Me
time with
too.
him? But, I think part of the
We
frustration
we
is,
have the
like
same Thrawn, like, love,
yeah.
I
Yeah,
think.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Thrawn was
Yeah.
really my first favorite Star Wars character, so I wanna spend some time with him in live action. I hope those back 4 episodes are Thrawn heavy now that we know it's taking so long to get there. But I think that that's the promise of this show to a lot of Star Wars fans is like we're gonna get some Thrawn, and we haven't quite gotten there yet.
Yeah.
So I hope that it happens soon. But we do have the Purrgil. We do learn a little bit more about their relationship with the old hyperspace lanes that Hu Yang. That this is kind of the getting into the antiquity of the Star Wars galaxy, which I'm always interested in learning about. And he's talking about ancient travels to distant galaxies and stuff like that. What do you think? Where do you think they're going to end up? Because we have really no idea where they're going or what they're going to find there, right?
So, no well, okay, so, I mean, it's teased that we're going to a whole 'nother universe.
Galaxy,
Wait, what galaxy? Right, okay,
right?
galaxy.
Yeah,
Within the galaxy, there's planets. Okay. So, yeah, it's teased we're going to a whole 'nother galaxy,
yeah,
and that the Purgles are well, so the bad guys have, like, what, 5, 7 hyperspace drives? that are gonna like shoot this hyperspace
Yeah.
ring to this extra galactic galaxy. And, if the rebels don't get on that ship, what are they gonna use to get there? Oh, it's probably gonna be Purgle, right?
Oh,
So
I
they're
see.
gonna.
My assumption was that they're gonna get captured in this
Oh,
next
okay.
episode because we
Huh.
know that these dark Jedi are hunting for them.
Right.
I thought maybe, oh, they'll get captured and brought aboard the hyperspace ring. But yeah, I guess the Purgle would make just as much sense if they're
Yeah.
carried there the same way that Ezra and Thrawn were.
Right. So that could possibly happen.
Yeah.
Um, what was your question?
What do you think
I
of,
forget.
because I just feel like all the stuff from the trailers we've pretty much seen except for
Oh,
Thrawn. But what do you think we're gonna find on the other end of this journey?
well, so the end credits are a little bit of a map of what we're
Right.
gonna find, and there's people who've translated.
Oh,
I know that one of the planets that a line goes through is Dathomir.
okay.
So if we visit Dathomir in live action, I'm gonna like freaking go crazy because that's another one of those legends from Courtship of Princess Leia
Yeah,
novels that I loved that is now, back here. Oh, I love it. Um, and then all the lines converge in the credits on this one very far away planet. I forget what was translated to, but I'm assuming that's where Thrawn is. And they converge in different times. Like they don't all converge at once.
right.
There's like three lines converge and then another line comes and then another. So watch those end credits because I feel like that's your map.
I know that, Alex Damon from Star Wars Explained has broken down the
Oh,
credits, the end credits. I
okay.
haven't watched his video yet, but I really should, just to get an understanding of what's going on in those end credits. Like you said, people have put in the hard work that I did not put in, to decipher all that. But I'm very curious because it does feel like new territory, which is always exciting when it comes to
Yeah.
Star Wars. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much the episode. It did leave me feeling a little unsatisfied. I do think it's going to play better for me when we have the whole picture. But
Hmm.
is there anything else you want to mention? Any other favorite moments that stuck out to you from Time to Fly, or anything that didn't work for you?
So I feel like where's the Loth cat?
Uh,
I
who
wish the Loth cat went
who's
with
taking care of
Ahsoka.
that lost cat back on Lothal?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the
I
Loth
I
cat can
just
probably take care of itself like a cat,
I
right?
really hope that she talked to Clancy Brown about going over there,
Yeah.
feeding the lost cat.
Oh my god. Can you imagine being Clancy Brown like petting this tiny little Loth cat? Oh, so cute. Oh, that would be
And just
amazing.
grumbling about it the whole
Yes.
time. Yeah,
Uh
so yeah, go ahead.
okay, so I really liked the music and what they're doing with it. I have a theory as to the instrumentation he uses for the bad Jedi versus Ahsoka and her team. But you'll have to tune into Skywalking Through Neverland to hear
Oh,
that.
okay.
Yeah. Uh, and other than that, I really enjoyed this episode, and I'm excited for more. I do feel like I was a little like, oh no, they're ending it. You know, like you did, but I understood why. And it was a fun place to end on, and honestly, where they're ending it feels a little like the book Heir to the Empire or Dark Force Rising for me
Okay.
when Luke and Mara are, like, out in the wilderness on that
Mhm.
planet and, like, the what is it? Thrawn and his lackeys are, like, searching for them
Right.
out in the wilderness. So
I
that's
gotta
what this kinda
reread that
reminds me of.
trilogy. It's been like a decade since I reread those, so I gotta
I
go
just
through those again.
re-listened to them this
Yeah?
year, so
Nice.
yeah, it was
Love
fun.
those books for sure. So we both want to see Thrawn sooner rather than
Yes.
later. We're both kind of hoping that Sabine doesn't necessarily become a traditional Jedi, which kind of seems like the direction they're going. But anything else that you're hoping for or expecting
Okay.
from the 5 remaining episodes?
So knowing that Morgan Elsbeth is like a Dathomir witch or
Yeah.
related to them or something, descendant, whatever, and she used already her witch magic,
Yeah.
the
Green
green light.
magic. Yeah.
I want to see a drop down drag out fight between
Yeah.
her with her witch magic and Ahsoka with
Mm.
her like Jedi powers and white lightsabers, and oh my god, I think that would be just incredible.
That'd be pretty sweet. Yeah. I would like to see. I mean, I'm sure we're gonna get this because we got Zeb in The
Oh yeah,
Mandalorian. I'm guessing we'll see the remaining Rebels crew reunited aboard the Ghost, right? This is
I
likely
hope
gonna happen by the
so.
end of this show. Uh,
Yeah, that should. That
yeah.
definitely. Like if
Uh, th-
storytelling works the way we
right.
think it does.
That seems like a no-brainer. I don't know. I probably shouldn't have wasted my wish on that one. But
That's
yeah,
okay.
enjoying the show overall. Looking forward to more definitely next week. That's going to end our discussion of Star Wars Ahsoka for this week. And we're going to get into our final segment here on Who's the Boss. It's called First Steps into a Larger World, where we talk about the media that we've been consuming and or enjoying outside of Star Wars. I went back and watched for the first time a movie that I missed in the theaters when it came out in 2017. It's called War for the Planet of the Apes, directed by Matt Reeves, who went on to do the Batman a couple years ago. I liked those previous recent Planet of the Apes movies. There was the Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and then this one was War for the Planet of the Apes. I thought it was really, really good, and it's got a great performance by Andy Serkis as the main ape Caesar. If you're a fan of his performance in Andor and his stuff in Lord of the Rings, definitely check out this movie because it's really a showcase for Andy Serkis and very atmospheric film. Matt Reeves is really good at that kind of thing. I'm sad that I waited so long to watch it, but I really enjoyed it and looking forward to. I know there's a new one coming up, so I kind of wanted to prep for that. With I
Oh,
think like next summer or something, we're getting
maybe.
another Planet of the Apes movie.
Possibly.
It's not Matt Reeves, sadly, but it's continuing the same storyline. Anyway, that's my recommendation for this week. What about you, Sarah? Anything you've watched or read or played recently?
Yes. So I am going to call out Rogers the Musical. And this is at Disneyland, Disney California Adventure
Yeah.
for the next day. But there are plenty of people who have recorded it. And you can watch it on YouTube. So anyone
Yeah.
who can't get there or buy a ticket or missed it, you can still do that.
I want to
This,
actually I want to plug Laughing Place's video of this that I
oh,
shot because it was during the media preview. There's not a lot of noise in the audience. I'm sitting in a really
oh,
good spot. I want to say we have one of the better recordings of this on YouTube. So continue.
I'm going to seek that out
Okay.
because I am obsessed with this musical. It is 35 minutes of pure joy.
Yeah.
If you are loved the whole MCU up until Endgame, it basically follows Steve Rogers' journey, mostly recapping his first Captain America, the first Avenger,
Yeah.
right? That movie
Right.
and his love story with Peggy Carter, which ends up coming back at the end of Endgame. So,
Yeah.
like that whole journey to me is beautiful, and I think it's just they did such a good job with this musical because it takes that tongue-in-cheek moment from Hawkeye, which is the Save the City song with all the Avengers, and adds such heart and warmth to the Steve Rogers story and him and Peggy Carter's love story with like 6, 7 new songs that are just earworms. Like they get caught in my head. I've seen it 7 times now
Oh wow.
at DCA. Like I've gone out of my way to go there to see it, and I'll be there on the last day tomorrow to watch.
Yeah.
Hopefully 2 more. We'll
Okay.
try to get at least 1 in, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I really think everyone should watch it, and I want it to become like an actual musical. I want it to stay there. Please don't go away
I
after
bet
August
it'll come
31st.
back. I'm actually
I
surprised they
hope
didn't
so.
extend it, but I bet it'll
I
come
am
back maybe
too.
next summer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like it a lot too. I've seen it 3 times and then likely once more tomorrow for the final day. Looking forward to that. And yeah, I recommend that too. I enjoyed that every time I saw it so far. I do want to
Yeah.
address, just say hi to some of the people in the comments really quick here before we go. Alexander Lee, hello. Pedro, hello. And then Chloe wants to say hi. What did we think of
Aw.
episode 3? We already went through that. And she loved episode 3 of Ahsoka. She loves Shin Hati and her way her
Hmm.
character is and her attitude and how she approaches things. Probably going to be a popular cosplay, I would say. some of these
Oh,
new
yeah.
characters. You know, you got for a bearded guy like me, I could be Balin Skull with the cloak, cool dark
Yeah.
Jedi character, like all these new character designs on
They're
Ahsoka.
cool.
Yeah, for sure. Really want the action figures too. Let's see. That's going to wrap up this week's episode of Who's the Bossk. I want to pay great thanks to my guest for this week, Sarah Woloski, for taking some time out once again to chat with me about Star Wars. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're
And
welcome. And
and where can we send people to find you and Richard, wherever you're at?
yeah, so Skywalking Through Neverland, if you just search that, YouTube or everywhere, you'll find us. We are Skywalking Pod on social media, mostly Instagram right
Yeah,
now. Like you, Mike, we were kind of floundering around like what's happening with Twitter, that's
yeah.
X, that's formerly Twitter, that's whatever. We're mostly on Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah,
So
the Twitter thing was putting me in a really bad mood all the time.
yeah,
So it's like
yeah,
Instagram is so much happier.
it
Why wouldn't
is.
you want to be there? So great. Skywalkingthrough Neverland.com, Skywalking Pod, wherever you get your social media. Next week on Who's the Boss, we'll be doing episode 4 of Ahsoka. As always, please visit laughingplace.com for all your Disney news and opinions. My name is Mike Celestino. I am on Instagram as well, and Threads, which is where I share my non-image thoughts. That's where I like to go and put wherever I have a stray thought that pops into my head. I go on Threads now. There's your Lothcat and your Thrawn. Hopefully, we'll get
Signed
more.
by Timothy Zahn.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome! That's so cool. That's really really neat. Thanks very much out there for listening and or watching here on Laughing Place. See you next week. Bye.